Good afternoon, LinkedIn. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for a fun session. Super excited for this one. And I know we had to delay, so all of you coming a month later, really appreciate it. This one has,
you wait.
I know, you have to just sometimes wait for the super fun conversations, right? And this one, jazzed about. If you haven't joined us before, the idea behind these conversations is we're 20-ish minutes. I don't know if we've ever hit 20. I think we're 20 to 30. But we're doing these to just kind of strip away this jargon, talk about belonging, what it means to build community. And for me, I'm Tasha. Anybody who doesn't know me, hi, let's connect. Would love to hear from you if you're listening in the comments about what you do in community building. But my lovely guest today inspired me to even think about doing these conversations because we connected over LinkedIn and I just, we reached out, had a conversation on different, sides of the globe, both building community. And it was that moment for me where I was like, oh, there's a vibe here for people who build communities. And we just hit it off. So George, I'd love for you to just very quick introduction of who you are, and then we'll jump into some more direct questions after that. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely, Tasha. And it's so lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I feel so lucky and grateful for that random message in my LinkedIn all those months ago being like, George, I really like what you're saying online about community building. Can we chat? 100%. I've learned so much from conversations with you. I've been so inspired by the work you're doing. It's such a pleasure to have these kind of conversations. So I'm really excited to be here. In an absolute tiny one sentence nutshell, the way I describe my work is I try and help leaders and organizations to build community, to build the ecosystems around their orgs and their entities and their ideas, that they can then mobilize those networks to create change, to scale those ideas, to share the message, to bring people together, to work together to create change. I've always been super passionate about it. I think I've been in the community space for going on 12 years now, and I can't imagine working in any other real direction. So yeah, really excited to have a chat.
Yay. And tell us a little bit, because you've got a fairly new role, and I love, even when I was figuring out what's the title of it going to be when I talk about doing this session with George, and it's networks into movements. I think from all of our discussions, that just feels like you in a nutshell. But what are you doing right now out in the world? Because I think it's a really interesting example for myself in a startup right now, but just that community building space and what that can look like in different areas.
Thanks. So having spent the last 12 years mainly working in the nonprofit or public sector, or somewhere in between those two places, working specifically on building communities and bringing people together, I've taken a slight pivot into the startup space, where I'm working for a German humanitarian delivery drone technology company. We make drones for inspection, protection, delivery. I serve as chief of staff, where I'm working on all sorts of things, whether it's internal community building across the business, whether it's collaboration facilitation. But one of my big focuses is on, I think for any, again, entity, organization, leader, idea to really thrive out in the world, it takes a village, right? It takes an ecosystem around that. And so that's my big focus at Wingcopter, which is where I work day to day, is building that ecosystem to mobilize support for what we think drones can do in the world and how we can positively impact businesses, sectors, countries, communities, cultures worldwide.
That's amazing. I love it.
It's fun.
It sounds really fun. And I think this is the unique part of what it, ecosystem building, community building, weaving, right? Whatever words you'd like to use or what speaks best to you. It applies in so many places that we can't even imagine to start. So I love this example of where you're working now. And I'm going to ask you, because I always love to kick off with these questions, but what's one project, story, or moment in your 10 plus years of community building that you're really proud of?
Can I cheat? I've got two.
Yeah, you can cheat. Yes, I'll allow it.
One of them I will take credit for. The other one is I absolutely cannot. The first one was quite early in my career. I was working for a charity in the UK that basically built volunteering communities around struggling schools to work with young people on leadership, on career development, on mentoring, on helping building support structures around these schools to help them do their best work. And part of that was finding alumni. And I had this incredible experience where I went digging on LinkedIn, actually, and I found this guy. It was not a great school that I was working with in North East London, struggling with budget cuts, quite a deprived area. And I found this guy who was an alum 50 years before, who was the UK, had been very successful, had gone on to become the UK's ambassador to the UN in New York.
Amazing.
And I reached out to him. I was just like, hey, I'm building a community around your old school. I was just wondering if you would ever be interested in coming back and, you know, if you're ever in the UK talking to the kids, because he was living in New York at the time. And he flew back specially to visit the school, give a talk and assembly, do an hour-long session after that assembly with the politics students who are in their sort of first and second year of what we call sixth form in the UK. So last 2 years of school, give them a chat about the career path. And I think the year after, something like their applications for university to do politics tripled in overnight. And that, I just found that so inspiring, because for me, it showed me, I was 24 at the time, it was early in my career, hadn't really had much experience of this at that time. It showed me the amazing things people would do to give back to their community, to support the people they care about, and the incredible power that community has or connection has to inspire people and change their trajectory. So that, I loved that. And then the second one was a more recent one a few years ago, and I can't take any credit for it because I wasn't involved at all, but it was a story that some of my community members, my constituents in the last community I worked on, told me, it was a leadership development community for sort of people across sectors, whether it was government, whether it's private sector, but it was people who are sort of early career leaders, people who were really making waves, but were high potential for the next generation of leaders. And two of them they'd never met before. One of them had just been inducted into the community. The other person was a longtime member. They happened to be at the same conference. They happened to sit next to each other in the bar after the conference. They happened to have a chat about it, find out they were part of the same community. And this was, I think it was 2019. And it was around the time of the really bad wildfires in New South Wales and Australia. And one of them was Australian. He's like, I really care about this and I don't know what to do about it. He worked in the corporate space. And the other one was a VC investor. And that night they hatched a plan for how basically one of them was going to start an AI-driven company to work on wildfire prevention. That company is now 5 years old, has raised millions of dollars in investment, is doing amazing work, particularly in Australia and on the west coast of North America on wildfire prevention. The guy he was talking to was one of his first key investors, and it just really showed me the unique way that communities can drive change and mobilize people through connection, through collaboration, knowledge exchange, and just finding opportunities to work together that you never would have seen otherwise. So yeah, those are my two.
I love those. Those are both fantastic. Great examples. And similarly to your first story, I know there was a very cool project. Lee Sanderson is a Canadian who does this organization called Real Path. And, that similarly just creating these structures around sometimes alumni community, but she's worked with a couple other organizations as well to go, people want to get involved, but you have to, there's an invitation part that continues in community again and again and again that I think it's very easy to forget because you've already invited and you're already here. We assume people are following along, that they know what's happening because they got our email, which maybe they did or did not open. But there's that little extra touch point that can change the entire way someone looks at a community that they are associated with in some way, particularly alumni. It's not going to be enough to just invite, someone who is no longer local to a breakfast that you're hosting, because they probably can't come to that, but maybe they're interested on that next level in continuing the conversation. So kudos to you. I think that's often something we tend to forget, is that there's that extra thing to do in terms of inviting and continuing to invite or continuing to create opportunities that it's really easy to forget about in our community building day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have no idea when that touch point is going to really impact someone and change the trajectory of their life. And that for me is what's so special about working in this community space, is the number of people who you don't know until they come back to you 6 months, a year, 3 years later and be like, you probably don't remember this, but this interaction that happened because of something your community, your convening did, changed the trajectory of my life. And I love that. It's my favorite bit about it.
Mine too. Mine too. This one's always interesting because I feel like everyone answers this differently that we've interviewed so far. But, what's the toughest challenge you see communities facing right now? And whether that's a product community or more of a, traditional online style forum community, like what do you think some of the challenges are?
I think it's a really interesting topic to explore, because something that I've seen a lot over the last couple of years, and I actually wrote about this for your website a little while back ago, is that I'm seeing the term community be co-opted quite a lot for something that I don't necessarily think it is, being co-opted for commercial purposes. Companies saying our customers are our community and we care about them, and trying to really leverage that sense of connection and affinity and relationship for commercial purposes. That's not always a bad thing, because there are amazing communities that are built around commercial concepts. But what I struggle with is people basically promising community, promising authentic connection, promising meaningful relationships that are built on and generate trust. And actually all they're really trying to do is take your money. And so I think that sense of exploitation is something that I really feel concern about and warn of when I'm talking to people who are building communities in any way, shape or form, is like, be really clear about what you're trying to build here and what it offers to the people that you're trying to engage, because it's incredibly noisy out there. Like there's in the digital world, there's so much going on. There's so many people, orgs, entities, concepts trying to grab your attention for good purposes, bad purpose, neutral purposes, whatever. But if you're not offering something of meaningful substance that actually is valuable to people and has a positive impact on them, you're really undermining the sense of what community is. And that burns people. And it changes the way they view it. It makes people less trustful, less open, less collaborative, and less keen to engage. And I think that is a real problem for community builders. So yeah, the real value comes in connection.
I would, double down. I feel so strongly about what you just said, because I think everyone's very sensitive to feeling extracted from, like, it seems like as a almost like global society, everyone's a little on edge, a little like less trustworthy, whether it's, post-COVID landscape, AI, all the things seem to be coalescing in a way that push people towards wanting community while also only wanting a certain type of community. And they're not even sure what they're looking for, but they're looking. But as soon as they find it doesn't meet some sort of hidden metric expectation in their head, or it feels like someone's taking something, I don't think people have a lot necessarily to give, or time to give, or energy to give. So they're really looking for it to be very high value. And I can get why businesses want communities. I think they're brilliant. I think having a community associated with your business is an incredible way to showcase value. But if it's always extracting from the other people in the community for the value, people are feeling pretty sensitive, and they got some big feels about that. And I don't think right now, word of mouth can work in both directions. And a lot of companies are not thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just about being authentic and honest with how you communicate with your stakeholders, how you communicate with your members and the people you're trying to engage, like telling them the truth about what you're trying to do with them and why you're trying to do it. As something I think about quite a lot is I think of community and network as two ends of the same spectrum, where networks tend to be more transactional. If you join a network, it's because you have an idea of, I want to be part of this network. This is what I'm going to get out of it, whether that's connections or introductions or business opportunities or mentoring or learning or whatever. And that's totally fine. At the other end, you've got community, which is built on social connection, like what meaningful relationships that are going to impact my soul and my person and my life am I going to get from that? And I'm yet to come across any community or network that is solely at one end of the spectrum. Everyone's pulls to a greater or lesser degree in one direction, or maybe even slight down right in the middle. But it's just being honest about what you're building and what it is and what it has to offer people and what they're going to get out of it. Because if you promise connection and then you offer transaction, people aren't going to keep coming back.
Yeah. No one likes a bait and switch. Like that's just No one likes that. Opportunities though, right now. And I think we already started to you already just started to bring some of this in, right? Of talking about what can happen when you successfully build community, but what are those opportunities? And you talked about impact even earlier, because that's a clear opportunity from getting community done right.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like there's two things there for me. There's the big picture opportunity, which is like, I'm a really firm believer that communities are the most powerful vehicles we have for creating change, for exchanging knowledge, for depolarizing dialogue and society, for creating opportunities to work together, for learning, for growth, for building stronger bonds across our society. So I just think, like, if you hadn't tell by the conversation we're having, I'm a big evangelist for communities. And I think that is the opportunity for communities to take a really prominent role in how we structure work, play, learning, society, everything we do at the moment as humans out in the world going forward. When I think about the opportunities for community builders or as community builders, I think in the age of AI, trust-based connections, that social capital, social connection that I talked about before, is just the most important, most valuable resource we have. And it's the thing that people are going looking for. You know, the age of Web 2, like social media promised us in the late 2000s and 2010s that we were all going to be connected in this global network, whichever platform it was, whether it was Facebook or MySpace or whatever. It promised that it was going to bring us all together for a more connected, more caring, more supportive world where we all knew each other. And actually, I mean, others might disagree with me on this, but I feel that now in 2025, the world's feeling more isolated than ever. People feel more isolated in those global social networks because actually, and you're talking about the bait and switch, like,
yeah,
all of those,
absolutely.
all of those social media platforms were really just trying to make money from people. And I think that creates an amazing opportunity for people who want to build real authentic community that is about helping people to be their best selves and find the connections and bring them together in ways that enable them to learn and grow and develop and create change in the world. That's so valuable, and that's what people are looking for right now. And so I think there's a really interesting opportunity for community builders who do it well to really find spaces for people, or for people to find spaces in those communities that really help them live the lives they want to live. Find their tribe. I think it's one of the most powerful things you can have in the world, is finding your tribe.
I love what you're saying about social media, and I ended up writing about this. I feel like right around the time you and I started talking, I was like obsessing a little bit on this idea about social media and how much it's changed. Partly because, and I'm going to date myself here, and I'm okay with that, because I started university in 2002, and we were one of the first Canadian universities that had Facebook. And at the time, it had to be associated with like your university email address even, and all of that happened. And it was fantastic. It was such a cool way to meet other people on your campus that you never would cross paths with, because there's 20,000 students at the campus. I wasn't meeting everybody. And it was, and the younger generations are not going to have known that version of the social media, because now so much of social media is everything from sources I'm not even slightly interested in, but there's money behind those sources being pushed in my direction, when really all I wanted to do was connect to other people in a similar like life journey, lived experience spot as myself, or I wanted to connect with my family. This is the only reason I still have Facebook at all, is because of my family members who refuse to let me remove myself entirely, because that's how we have some engagement. And across the world though too, right? Friends that are in Australia now that I grew up with here in Canada, that's still a form of connection, but that's what I really want. And that it feels like it's been slowly taken away. So I think people are on the hunt for communities, but they're really not wanting it for the same thing that I think some online communities were initially built for, which was really around learning, like learning-based communities. It's interesting to see people shifting away from that, because that's not the only part of community they're now looking for. They're looking for that connective piece with other humans.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about really, I have this image in my head of just people gathering around campfires like they have done in all of human history. And we used to do it in tribes in the wilderness as hunter-gatherers. And now people are gathering around digital campfires to talk about the things that they care about and connect over the ideas, the concepts, the issues, the identities that they care about. And that's amazing. But it's about using those tools to allow people to gather around those campfires rather than using those tools. It's so easy to trick people into thinking that I'm connected with someone because we follow each other on LinkedIn or Instagram or something like that. That's not real connection. You're not actually talking to people. It's one of the things I love about what you're doing with the Community Hives platform is like that is a community building platform that doesn't require people to create a profile and post on each other's wall. It's like you sign up to this and your interaction with the community is real one-to-one conversations with people who've gathered around your campfire with you. And I think that's where the real magic lies.
Oh, thank you. You're so lovely. I was gonna say I couldn't have tried to say that better myself. So that's awesome. And I always like to round these up because someone like yourself who's been in this space for quite a while, and I know there are many people who are coming into community building right now in their roles. Sometimes they're like myself, they started out as a marketer, but maybe they were originally a project manager. I feel like lots of us find ourselves here by accident versus intentionality at the beginning. But
Definitely
for those people, what would you say? What would a piece of advice be as somebody who's been doing this for a large part of their career?
I think I'm gonna be a little bit of no, I don't want to make it. I think I'm going to embarrass myself slightly by quoting Simon Sinek directly, who I think is brilliant in many ways, but maybe it's a little mainstream. But he has this amazing talk that I think he did for TED, or it's on YouTube way back when, about starting with why. And I think that's a really powerful concept and foundational concept for anyone building anything is like, why are you doing it? Whenever in my last role, I had the community that I worked with for the organization, but then there were lots of other people across the organization who wanted to work on communities in their spaces. And so I ended up setting up a little bit of a cottage industry where people would come to me like, George, I want to set up a community. Okay, why? Oh, I don't know. I just think it would be a good thing to do. And it's like, okay, go figure out why, and then I can help you. Because if you're just building for the sake of it, or you're just building because you think it'll be useful to you, that's not a good foundation to start with. Like understanding why you want to build this community, what question does it answer, what problem does it solve, how does it help people, is such a core foundation, because it creates a North Star that will then guide everything that you do from that point in. And for me, that sort of, that's the really core center bit. If you want to take it one step further, it's start with focusing on the culture that you want to build with the community, identifying the mission, which is obviously built on the why. So the mission, the vision, and the values, like if you can get those in place, they are a really powerful way of shaping everything you're going to do from that point on, and they will help you answer all of the questions and challenges and issues that come up with along the journey. If you're trying to figure out like, should we do this kind of event? Should we do this kind of communication? Should we add this bit to our charter that governs what we do as a community? Like if you have those foundational mission, vision, and values in place, they create a really easy set of concepts to subscribe to. And I think that values bit is really important for guiding how people behave in communities. Like something I've come across a lot over the years is people being like, we must put rules and regulations in place for how people interact with this community to make sure it all stays above board and what we want. And what I found over the years is that if you give people rules and tell them what they can't do, they will chafe against that, and you'll end up dealing with a load of breaches over the years. If you give people values to guide their behavior, you give them the opportunity to subscribe to those and to champion them and push them forward and identify with them. That means you don't have to please people. You don't have to put rules in place, because they end up self-guiding. And that is a really brilliant way of putting the community members themselves at the center of the process and the community.
Such great advice. I was going to say, it's fantastic advice, because I think it is really my experience has absolutely been that there's two universal truths, at least in community, but one of them is that community is very messy because we're talking about humans, right? So if you try to keep it too tight, yes, people chafe against it. And ultimately, you're going to spend so much time policing those things. And you're not going to want to do that as the community builder. That's exhausting. And that's a great way to have to be totally just burnt out, epically burnt out by trying to do that. And, you know, there's so much about community growth that is, you can try to be tied to it to some way, but some of it just has to be decided by the community to some extent too, right? I think there are probably some much healthier communities that exist with only 100 members versus the ones that try to scale to 1,000, 10,000. It, you know, there's a vanity metric to number of people in your community. That's not actually a great indicator, I think, of overall community health.
Totally. It's that level of engagement that really matters. How much do people really care about it? And it's one of the things I think about a lot as a community builder, is that you shouldn't try to lead, you should try to convene. Like, let the community lead. Our job as community builders is to put the structures and the frameworks and the support systems in place to allow them to lead themselves. I really firmly believe that any community should be letting the members lead themselves.
Well, this feels like another whole conversation. If we got to community health, part two coming in the spring. We'll have to just do it. How can people get best in touch with you, George? Because I feel like, you know, this is such an interesting conversation. You're so interesting to talk about community work with. What's the best way for people to reach out, follow along, engage with your work?
Thank you. Well, I will say, first of all, likewise, I always love these conversations. I learn so much from you. So thank you. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. I love it when people reach out to me on there. I post reasonably regularly, not as much as I should, but when I can, if people drop me messages, I actually know that I think there's some people watching who I know have dropped me messages and I haven't responded yet because I've been swamped the last few weeks. So apologies, but absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn and drop me a message. I'd be really happy to have a chat. Alongside my day job, I do some consultancy, I do some advisory work, I do some board work around communities and around convening and around systems change. So always happy to have those conversations with people and really keen to do so. It's about, you know, building your own community as well as finding the right ones to be in. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for everyone who listened in. Thanks, George, for just, you know, responding to random messages from people who were like, "Oh, you're doing such cool stuff," because this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't responded. And, you know, just love how you talk about community. Looking forward to continuing to work together and just dream up what community looks like for the years ahead, for sure.
Thank you. And likewise, I'm always so inspired by the people I meet who work in this space. It's the best bit about it is no one's ever competing. They're always just keen to share. So yeah, always a pleasure, Tasha. Thank you so much. Okay. Are we still live? I can't tell. I've got a little box that says I'm still live.
I know it's supposed to have ended. Just 1 second. I think it's still ending. 1 second.